In my last life, I was the dazzling, glamorous young heiress of a powerful family in the 1970s. My cousin Sophie stole my fiancé, Alex Ivanov, a decorated military officer with a brilliant future, and I ended up marrying Julian Vance, a smooth-talking but unreliable man who had returned from the countryside. After being reborn, the very first person I saw was Sophie. Before I could even process what was happening, she announced that she no longer wanted to marry the doomed officer, Alex Ivanov. In fact, she confessed that she had already secretly promised herself to Julian. I was stunned to realize she had been reborn before me. What she didn't know, however, was that in our previous life, none of the four children she ended up raising were her husband's, and the only reason Julian managed to become the country's wealthiest man was because of me. Fine, I thought. If that's how she wants to play it, I'll be the one to form an alliance with the Ivanov family. I put on a mask of understanding and maturity, a playful smile on my lips as I linked arms with my mother, Eleanor, who was acting more like Sophie's mother than mine. So what if Sophie ends up with the empty title of Mrs. Officer? I said lightly. It's just a name, nothing to worry about. Eleanor beamed with pride, showering Sophie with compliments. In our past life, Sophie had successfully snatched Alex Ivanov from me, only to live a life of misery. Alex was paralyzed in an accident, his face disfigured so badly he was unrecognizable. He was unable to have a normal, intimate life and developed a twisted, violent temper. He had even adopted two children left behind by a fallen comrade. Sophie, once a pampered girl who had never worked a day in her life, instantly became a stepmother to a boy and a girl. She cooked, cleaned, and even washed their underwear while being completely ignored by her husband. To make matters worse, Alex died young, leaving Sophie a widow in her late 20s. She eventually remarried a poor cobbler, lived in poverty, suffered domestic abuse, and spent the rest of her days in quiet desperation. She must have been reborn with the burning desire to watch me walk that same doomed path. She stood at the door, putting on a show of false sincerity, smiling sweetly as she said to me, "Congratulations, cousin. You're about to become a military wife." Sophie smiled back. "Thanks, cousin. But when did you get involved with Julian Vance?" I feigned ignorance. In my past life, I married Julian after he returned from his assignment in the countryside. He seemed like a promising young man from a good family and eventually became the wealthiest man in the country. I was the envied wife of a tycoon, but everything he achieved was because of my efforts behind the scenes. Julian, playing along with Sophie's delusion, smiled brightly and said, "I've had a crush on Clara for a long time. We've been writing letters back and forth. The last time I was home for a visit, we even went on a date." It was clear then that he had also been reborn, and even earlier than Sophie. Around that same time, a telegram arrived. Alex Ivanov had been severely injured during a mission and was now bedridden. The doctors feared he might be permanently disabled. In my past life, I ran a hospital and served as its director. Just days before I died, I was still performing surgeries. When I heard about Alex's injury and the grim prognosis, a plan began to form. My grandfather, who adored me, was the one who had arranged the engagement between me and Alex. He told me that if I didn't want to go through with it, I didn't have to. But Alex's father was a high-ranking commander, while my own father favored my younger brother, Daniel. My mother, Eleanor, also doted on my brother and my cousin Sophie. The only person who truly cared for me, my grandfather, was now confined to his bed and too ill to advocate for me. I was on my own. Given the Ivanov family's influence, if I could treat Alex and help him recover, I would become their benefactor. That connection would be a powerful shield for me in the capital. I packed a small bag with only my essential clothes and my family's ancestral acupuncture tools and set out for the countryside. Just as I was about to leave, I learned that Sophie would be coming with me. Coincidentally, the village Julian had been assigned to was near the one where Alex was recovering. Sophie brought several enormous suitcases filled with dresses, skirts, and delicate leather shoes. She acted helpless and fragile, ordering me around and asking me to help carry her things. "My luggage is heavy, too," I said coldly. "I can't carry it all by myself." My mother shot me a glare before turning to eagerly help Sophie load her luggage onto the truck. She even pulled me aside to repeatedly remind me to take good care of my cousin once we arrived. I pretended not to hear her and simply handed Sophie my own suitcase. She reluctantly helped me put it on the truck. After we got off the train, one of Alex Ivanov's subordinates picked me up in a military jeep. As soon as he saw me, he saluted sharply and addressed me as ma'am. I smiled and nodded, choosing not to correct him. From behind me, Sophie muttered, "She's about to be a young widow and she's still smiling. Let's see how long she can keep that up once that doomed officer finally dies." I ignored her, but her smug expression soured the moment she realized that to get to her destination, she would have to ride on the back of a tractor. Her face flushed with anger, and she immediately ordered the soldier standing beside me to take her to her village first and then come back for me. The soldier refused without a moment's hesitation. "I was sent to pick up Miss Carter," he said firmly. Then, without giving Sophie another glance, he helped me secure my luggage in the vehicle. As we approached the infirmary, I could hear pained groans coming from inside. When I opened the door and stepped in, it felt like I was staring at a mummy. Alex Ivanov was completely wrapped in bandages from head to toe. The chief doctor had just administered a dose of a potent painkiller imported from overseas. "Let him rest for now," the clinic director said dismissively. I stepped forward with my acupuncture kit. "How could you give him a drug like that so casually?" I reprimanded him. "The side effects are severe, and his body is clearly not strong enough to handle it." The clinic director barked back, "And what would a young girl like you know? This is the best imported painkiller available. Other places can't even get it. If he keeps taking this, there's no point in even trying to treat him. He might as well start preparing for his funeral." "This is a serious matter." I stood my ground. The director wasn't backing down. "And who are you to speak to me with that tone?" From the hospital bed, Alex trembled as he slowly raised a hand. "Are you Clara?" he asked, his voice weak. "You know me," I responded, surprised. We had never met before. He truly was the privileged son of the elite Ivanov family. His features were sharp and noble, with tan skin, striking phoenix-shaped eyes, and a straight, prominent nose, a level of refinement you rarely saw. Once he understood who I was, the first thing he said was that I should remarry, that I didn't have to go through with our engagement. I gave a soft laugh and told him not to worry about that just yet. I explained that with a few targeted acupuncture treatments, I could not only ease his pain, but also open the blocked meridians throughout his body. Within 3 days, I promised, he would be free from the unbearable agony. The clinic director and the other doctors were skeptical. They all opposed the idea. Only Alex was willing to try. He figured he was already on the verge of death, so what did he have to lose? I picked up my silver needles and asked everyone else to leave the room, stating that I needed complete focus. "Commander Ivanov," I said softly, "this might hurt a bit. Please try to relax." As the first needles went in, his hands gripped the bedsheets, his muscles tensing and trembling. I inserted well over 100 needles, and eventually the pain became too much for him. He started to cry out in small gasps. After nearly 300 insertions, sweat covered his forehead. Once the full set was in place, I couldn't lose focus. With acupuncture, once the process starts, it has to be seen through to the end. I didn't notice the intense way Alex was staring at me. Lying there drenched in sweat, his body burning with heat, Alex felt more relief than he had since the day he was injured. For the first time, the pain was replaced with a deep, soothing comfort. After 30 minutes, I began removing the needles one by one. He couldn't help but cry out again as they came out. The clinic director and the others burst into the room, only to see Alex smiling for the first time in what felt like an eternity. He asked his men to escort me to the family housing quarters. This was a remote town, and most of the accompanying military wives were from nearby villages. The moment they found out I was from the capital, they started whispering and gossiping, already aware that I was Alex's fiancée. I ignored their remarks and followed the soldier into Alex's assigned house. With my care, Alex's health improved visibly each day. One day, he asked if there would be any long-term side effects from his injuries. I nodded, and he immediately looked anxious. "In that case," he said, "maybe we shouldn't submit the marriage application just yet. Thank you for coming here and helping me, but I don't want to ruin your future. Once I'm better, you should return to the capital. You'll be fully recovered in a month, 6 weeks at the most if we want to be cautious," I reassured him calmly. but his brow remained furrowed with worry. And what about our engagement? My grandfather is old now, I explained. All he wants is for me to settle down and be happy. So once you recover, let's go ahead and get married. His eyes lit up. You'd still be willing to marry me like this? He seemed genuinely happy. From that day on, he started calling me by nicknames. Clara, then Clary, and even just C. As for the clinic director who used to dismiss me, he now respectfully asked if I would consider joining the hospital staff, even offering me the position of assistant director. Given my experience running a major hospital in my previous life, being the director of a small-town clinic was hardly a challenge, let alone being the assistant. I accepted the offer without hesitation. Alex smiled brightly and took my hand, praising me in front of everyone. Clary, you're truly amazing. There was a hint of pride and deep affection in his eyes. In my previous life, even after I painstakingly built a company and trained a competent team for Julian, he never once praised me. Instead, he always criticized me for being too cold, unfeeling, or aggressive. Now that I had a job at the clinic, I had access to all their resources. Still, the medical technology here was decades behind. I began writing down many of the advanced medical theories and techniques I had learned in my past life and proposed a series of public training sessions. After a few highly successful sessions, the clinic director was so impressed that he promoted me to head of the clinic. He told me that aside from continuing the training programs, I only needed to focus on treating one patient, Alex. In less than a month, Alex had almost completely recovered. He repeatedly asked if I truly wanted to marry him, and each time, my answer was yes. Overjoyed, he finally submitted our marriage application. As I helped him fill out the forms, he took the opportunity to wrap his arm around my waist. His large, calloused hand was warm and unexpectedly sensual. It startled me, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. My face turned red, and of course, he noticed. He leaned down and kissed me. After the kiss, he whispered, "If my body hadn't recovered, I would never have let myself ruin your happiness." Having lived through 2 lifetimes, this was the first time anyone had ever truly kissed me. My heart pounded uncontrollably, and I couldn't even meet his eyes. As we were pressed close together, he boldly placed his hand over my chest, feeling my racing heartbeat. He grinned. "So it's me you like, not just pity." Blushing, I buried my face against his chest. At that moment, the registration officer walked in and caught us. But since they were all married comrades, no one seemed embarrassed. On the contrary, they joked, telling us to calm down a little since his body wasn't fully healed yet. Alex pulled me tightly into his arms and started bragging about how incredible I was, how I had dragged him back from the brink of death, how I was promoted from deputy to director in less than a month, and how my lecture had even been featured in the newspaper. The 2 officers laughed. "We've never seen Alex talk this much before. He used to be known as the ice-faced king of hell." "Congratulations on your marriage," they added, handing us our official certificate. With the paperwork done, we completed Alex's discharge process. As we left the clinic hand in hand, one of his subordinates reminded us to be careful. Just as we stepped outside, a crazed-looking woman rushed toward us. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days, filthy from head to toe, her face hollow and covered in red rashes. At first glance, she looked like a beggar. The moment she approached, Alex instinctively pulled me behind him to shield me. "Who are you?" he asked sharply. "I'm her cousin. It's me, Sophie," she cried. Apparently, she had found out I was with Alex and came looking for us. Alex, being soft-hearted, took pity on her and allowed her to come with us. Just as in her previous life, Julian already had a new lover in his village. They were inseparable, completely ignoring Sophie's presence. The women in the village, strong and unwelcoming, banded together and ostracized Sophie. But she refused to give up. In her desperation to win Julian back, she bribed a few local men to ruin his new lover. Unfortunately for her, the thugs chickened out when they realized the girl was the village chief's daughter. Instead of going through with the plan, they turned on Sophie. She ended up locked in a cattle pen and was assaulted repeatedly. It took everything she had just to escape alive. All Sophie remembered from her past life was the televised interview showing me and Julian as the perfect, loving couple. What she never knew was that none of those children were mine. The first woman Julian had been with died in childbirth, and he brought the baby home for me to raise. I found it disgusting and wouldn't even let him touch me after that. Still, he went on to father more children with different women, 4 in total, all of whom he brought home for me to raise. Alex, kind and upright as he was furious when he heard what had happened to Sophie. He swore he would get justice for her. Sophie's eyes welled with tears of gratitude as she begged to come back with us to the military housing complex. But I gently tugged on Alex's hand and pouted. "We just got married," I said sweetly. "Bringing someone else home right now doesn't feel right, does it?" Alex immediately refused Sophie's request and told one of his men to take her to a nearby guest house instead. She smelled terrible, and all the fancy dresses, snacks, and coupons she had hauled from the capital had already been taken by others. At this point, just having a place to stay was more than she could ask for, so she had no choice but to accept. Thick-skinned as ever, Sophie then asked me for money and shopping coupons. "No," I said flatly. "You brought way more than I did from home, and now you're asking me? I barely have enough for myself." Alex, being the generous soul he was, took out a few bills from his pocket and handed them to her. Sophie's eyes lit up with infatuation as she stared at Alex, but she hesitated to take the money, probably remembering how in our past life, after Alex became disabled, his personality had turned cold and volatile. "Alex, you're feeling better now?" she asked tentatively. One of the soldiers standing by snapped, "Do you think you can just call our commander by his name like that?" "I'm sorry, Commander Ivanov," Sophie corrected herself quickly. "I can't take your money." Her refusal only stirred Alex's sympathy further. He pushed the bills into her hands without another word. I stayed silent. Alex turned to me, thinking I was upset. "Clary, are you all right? Maybe we should head back to the clinic and get you checked out." I smiled at him. "You forgot you're alive thanks to me. Don't you think I'd know if there was something wrong with me?" He laughed, and he never let go of my hand for the rest of the day. Sophie glanced at our joined hands, a bitter gleam in her eye, as if she couldn't comprehend how different our lives had become. Under her confused gaze, Alex and I got into the car and left. As soon as we pulled up to our house, other soldiers' wives came over with gifts, eggs, dumplings, even handmade pastries, wishing us a happy marriage. It turned out Alex had already told everyone. When we entered the house, he noticed how spotless it was and pulled me into his arms on the couch. "This place really feels different with a woman in it. So clean and cozy." Then he leaned down and kissed me. "I don't do chores," I teased. "I hired someone to clean. There's still time to back out if you regret marrying me." He paused for a second, then chuckled. "Regret you? You're a wealthy heiress who came to this remote place, stayed in a hospital, fetched water, fed me, and even helped wash me. You've already gone above and beyond." Feeling a little smug, I leaned in and kissed him again. One kiss led to another, and soon we were tumbling onto the bed. He wouldn't let me sleep the entire night. I couldn't believe someone who had just recovered from a near-fatal injury still had that kind of energy. If I hadn't known what he'd been through, I'd never have guessed how intense he could be. By noon the next day, he was still gently massaging my lower back when someone started banging on the door. Alex opened it, and seeing it was Sophie, actually let her in. "Clary's still asleep," he said. "Have a seat and wait a moment." Then he left to run some errands. I was still curled up in bed when Sophie barged right into the master bedroom without knocking. She saw me lying there, my clothes not yet on, lips swollen, and my collarbone bruised. Her face twisted in shock. "Clara, Julian is trash. I've already told Aunt Eleanor everything. I still want to marry Alex, and he agreed to it." Shameless as always, I refused to back down. "Cousin, I sympathize with what you've been through, but we're already legally married. It's a military marriage. Unless he asks for a divorce, I legally can't leave him even if I wanted to." She scoffed and stepped closer, sniffing the air. "The whole room smells sweet. I heard all about it, cousin. Alex is back to full health, isn't he? You're telling me someone in his condition could be cured with your so-called medical skills? Don't tell me you've been reborn too." I kept my expression cold, not wanting to engage. She gritted her teeth. "So you knew all along that Julian was a scumbag? That's why you generously handed him over to me, huh? Now she was demanding answers, but I felt nothing but contempt for her. I gave her a half-hearted response. You want to know what Julian was like in our last life? And in the future? Will he still be the same kind of man? Sophie asked, her eyes lighting up. Will he still become the richest man? Will I still be his glamorous wife, enjoying a life of endless wealth? Even after living a second life, she was still delusional. Just moments ago, she was saying she wanted to marry Alex. Sophie had cleaned up, but red rashes still covered her arms and neck. The sight was disturbing, and she kept scratching herself as she spoke. I frowned in disgust and pulled the blanket up to cover myself. I'm not feeling well, she muttered, trying to act pitiful. Can you take a look and prescribe something for me? Her tone was as irritating as ever. There was no way I would treat her. You'd better get yourself to a hospital for a full examination, I warned. Skin conditions and other infectious diseases can get out of hand if left untreated. She snapped, her temper flaring. Hey, Clara, aren't you known for your compassion as a doctor? If you won't help me and I go to the hospital and they find out it's some kind of dirty disease, people will talk. I'll be humiliated. How will I ever compete with you for Alex then? This was the moment I truly realized that in both lives, Sophie had absolutely no shame. Alex and I are already married, I said calmly. If you think you can steal him, go ahead. Try. Just as I finished speaking, Alex returned and heard everything. He came in and told Sophie to leave. Then he turned, locked the door, and sat down in front of me, looking utterly pitiful. We just got married, he said, and you're already trying to give me away. I laughed and pinched his cheek. You look like a sad little puppy right now, my very own puppy. Eventually, I gave in to Sophie's pleading and personally took her to the hospital. As soon as we walked into the clinic lobby, I saw Julian. By this point, the other educated youth sent to the countryside had already returned to the city, but the village beauty, Maria, had tried to keep Julian from leaving. He didn't want to let go of her, but he also couldn't forget about my status as a wealthy heiress. In the end, he abandoned her and returned to the capital. The same night we got married, he had hidden that girl in our home. I discovered it myself. Clearly, he hadn't expected to run into me today. He lit up when he saw me and greeted me with fake enthusiasm. Clary, he said, his voice sickeningly sweet. Sophie didn't care about appearances anymore. The moment she laid eyes on Julian, her expression turned vicious. She stormed forward and slapped him hard across the face. You bastard! Because of you, I was locked in a cattle pen for days. Just wait till I get back to the city. I'll have my aunt destroy you. Julian wasn't one to back down. He slapped her right back. I already made it clear I rejected you. You were the one who used your money to bribe those thugs to go after the village girl. That's why you were locked up. If I were you, I'd leave before something worse happens. Enraged, Sophie lunged at him, punching and kicking wildly. At first, Julian just tried to block her blows, but soon he fought back, and the two of them started brawling right there in the clinic lobby. Maria, returning from the pharmacy, saw Sophie and flew into a rage. She rushed forward, grabbed Sophie's hair, and yanked hard. Sophie screamed and called out to me for help, but I stood there coldly, arms crossed, watching it all unfold. A crowd gathered. It wasn't until Maria tore a patch of Sophie's scalp, complete with hair and skin, that Sophie dropped to her knees, begging for mercy. As department head, I ordered the security guards to throw all three of them out. The two women were pulled apart, spitting and trading insults. Julian didn't spare either of them a glance. Instead, he turned to me with a grin. Are you hungry? Let's go to a restaurant. My treat. Who are you? I replied coolly. I don't know you. After years in the countryside, he had grown darker and rougher. Nothing like the elegant man he'd once been under my care. Clary, it's me, Julian, he insisted. Don't you remember? I'm your destiny. I'm going to be the richest man in the country. You'll be the admired wife of a tycoon. A jolt of alarm surged through me. I looked at him in shock. Could he have been reborn too? He kept smiling as he walked closer, trying to touch me. I immediately stepped back. He still tried to be charming, saying in that nauseating tone, Clary, we had a wonderful life together in our last life. Believe me, this time I'll love you, spoil you, and protect you just the same. If I hadn't been reborn myself, I might have been touched. Instead, I let out a light laugh. Julian, don't talk nonsense. My family arranged for an alliance with the Ivanovs. Sophie tried to snatch the match from me, but Alex didn't want her. So now I'm the one marrying into the Ivanov family. You mean you're really going to marry Alex Ivanov? That sickly, short-lived guy? He sneered. I'm telling you, he doesn't have many days left. And Sophie has a thing for stealing whatever you want, so watch your back. That's my business, not yours, I replied coolly. He clearly hadn't expected me to be even colder to him than I was in our previous life. Suddenly, a military jeep rolled up and Alex stepped out in his full uniform, radiating strength and authority. My heart started pounding. Julian didn't notice Alex right away. His eyes were glued to the car, practically drooling. I had given him a similar vehicle as part of his wedding gift in our past life, only to later discover he used it to cheat on me. I stepped forward and stood next to Alex, then looked Julian straight in the eye. Julian, let me be honest with you. The moment I met Alex Ivanov, I fell in love with him. Only then did Julian finally notice Alex. Tall, powerful, healthy, and strikingly handsome. Nothing like the doomed man he'd imagined. Julian's smile faded instantly, his expression turning sour. Alex wrapped an arm around me protectively and introduced himself. Nice to meet you. I'm Alex Ivanov, Clara's husband. Julian froze, his eyes wide. You're not dead? Alex chuckled. Thanks to Clara's exceptional medical skills, I came back from death's door. He didn't hold a grudge against Julian, but he was clearly pleased that I'd openly declared my love for him right in front of a rival. He tightened his arm around me and whispered in my ear, I love you too, Clary. Then, without warning, he gently nibbled on my ear in full view of Julian. Julian's face turned black with rage. Just then, Maria returned and shouted from the distance, Julian, my dad's dying. You promised you'd marry me and take me to the city. Come now, tell my dad yourself. Julian instantly stepped back. Maria, I can't marry you. I'm leaving soon. Just give up. Maria grabbed his ear and yelled, So those city girls were right. You really are a two-faced jerk. We stood there watching as she dragged Julian away by his ear. A few moments later, Sophie came out of the exam room, crying. I can't believe it. I have syphilis. Damn that village. I swear I'll burn the whole place down. She turned and saw me and Alex, her expression shifting to embarrassment. The doctor said it's curable. Once I'm treated, I'll be as good as new. Alex and I immediately stepped back. We had her sent back to her hotel. Alex, ever kind, even bought her a train ticket back to the capital, but she refused to leave. We didn't bother with her. The next day, we received a telegram from my mother. To my disbelief, she asked me to divorce Alex and let Sophie marry him instead. So much for maternal love. I had no intention of responding, but Alex did. He sent a telegram back stating clearly that he had already married me and would never let me go. He also sent a telegram to his own family asking them to start preparing for our wedding. After sending the messages, he held me tightly, stroking my hair. Alex, are you all right? I asked softly. I'm fine, he whispered. I just feel heartbroken for you. I can't believe your own mother would treat you like that. I gave him a quiet smile. What does it matter? I have you now. He said he wanted to take me somewhere. It was a courtyard glowing with string lights. Suddenly, a crowd of his fellow soldiers appeared. Then Alex pulled out a ring, knelt on one knee, and proposed to me with solemn sincerity. I laughed. Who proposes after already getting the marriage license? He misunderstood, thinking I was about to turn him down, and quickly grabbed my hand. I was afraid of losing you. I didn't want to wait and risk missing the chance, so I filed the application first. But I know every woman dreams of a real proposal. I want to give you all of that. So where's that legendary cold-faced war god now? I teased, holding out my hand. Hurry up and put the ring on. He jumped up with joy and lifted me into the air as everyone cheered, Kiss her! Kiss her! He cupped my face gently and kissed me over and over. That's when I spotted Julian in the crowd. Because my training materials had been submitted by the clinic director, the Capital Medical University officially offered me a position as a professor and invited me to work at their affiliated hospital. Coincidentally, we were planning to return to the capital for our wedding ceremony anyway. Alex had also secured critical intelligence during his last mission and was returning to be honored with a military commendation. The whole way back, we were all smiles. When we arrived, Alex went straight to receive his award while I returned home alone. I only wanted to see my grandfather. At home, Sophie was already there, clinging to my mother's arm. She looked down on me and sneered. Clara, I've got Aunt Eleanor backing me now. She's going to convince Grandpa to make you divorce Alex. I didn't engage. I casually brought up what had happened to Sophie in the countryside, but my mother didn't believe me. She kept defending her. So, I pulled out Sophie's medical report from the clinic. The moment my mother saw the word syphilis, she panicked and yanked her hand away from Sophie, glaring at her in horror. You little monster! You had syphilis and never said a word? What were you trying to do? Kill us all? Oh, come on, Aunt Eleanor, Sophie tried to explain. It's just syphilis. I've already taken the medicine. It's cleared up. But my mother wasn't having it. With a furious slap, she smacked Sophie across the face. I've had enough. I'm going to talk to Dad. My grandfather, though frail, was still reading his medical books. He lit up the moment he saw me. We had barely exchanged a few words when chaos erupted outside. My mother was ordering the staff to strip and wash all the bedding and clothing in the house and demanded that Sophie be moved out immediately. Sophie, having lost her protector, came crying to me. Cousin, you're a doctor. Please tell Aunt Eleanor it's not a big deal. My mother came storming after her. You have syphilis. That's a dirty, contagious disease, and you brought it into our house. How could you disgrace our family like this? At that moment, my father, Robert, and my younger brother Daniel returned. What's going on in here? My father called out sternly. He had already heard everything. Our family's shame should be kept behind closed doors. He snapped at my mother. How could you go shouting about this filth in front of everyone? Are you trying to destroy our family's reputation? It wasn't that my father was defending Sophie. He just cared about appearances. In the end, Sophie was kicked out of the house with nothing but the clothes on her back. Later, someone came to the house. It was Julian. Since returning to the city, he looked more refined. The moment he walked in, he claimed he had always loved me and that Alex was doomed to die. He tried to persuade my parents to make me divorce Alex and marry him instead. The Vance family wasn't prestigious, but they held a piece of a business my father had been eyeing. On top of that, Julian's father had married my dad's first love. Just like that, my father decided to use me to settle an old grudge. He shamelessly agreed to Julian's request. My mother, of course, backed him completely. I'm already married, I said sharply. Are you really trying to destroy a military marriage? My father, who had never cared about me, finally spoke up. Clara, we're only thinking of your happiness. Yeah, my mother chimed in. What good is a man who's dying? I had never experienced true parental love, not in my last life, and I had stopped hoping for it in this one. Calmly, I said to my mother, do you know why Dad wants me to marry Julian? Because Julian's mother is Dad's first love. He still keeps her old love letters and photos in a locked drawer. My mother had always been meek, but this was the one thing that had haunted her. I had never exposed it before, but now, with everything out in the open, my father was publicly humiliated. She slapped him across the face. So you're still in love with your first girlfriend? Is that why you named our son Daniel? Because you're still thinking of Danielle every single day? The situation spun out of control when Julian's parents arrived with gifts. Eventually, Julian's entire family was asked to leave while my parents kept fighting. Later, my mother came to find me, her eyes swollen. She was probably hoping I'd comfort her, but I ignored her. I felt nothing. After dinner, I sat by my grandfather's bedside. His grip on my hand was still firm. Clara, he said softly, when I'm gone, there will be no one left to protect you. You have to be strong and you must be happy. Tears welled in my eyes. Grandpa, Alex and I already registered our marriage. I will be happy. He's being honored today and we'll be back soon to see you. You'll like him. He smiled gently, and by the time Alex returned that night, the 3 stars on his shoulder had become 4. He had been promoted. My parents were nowhere to be found. I took Alex to see Grandpa, whose face lit up with joy. He held both our hands and told Alex to take good care of me. Alex wrapped his arm around me and promised, "Sir, for the rest of my life, I'll love only her." The next day, Alex came to our home officially to propose. His parents and grandfather came along too. My father, still fuming, refused to come home. My mother went out shopping. It was my grandfather who received them. The two grandfathers had endless things to talk about. When my father finally returned, he was livid, accusing my grandfather of meddling. That's when Grandpa lost his temper and declared that he was transferring his company shares to me. I now held the same number of shares as my brother. My father was stunned. He tried to pressure my mother into giving her shares to my brother, but still angry, she defiantly told him she had already transferred her shares to me. With that, I became the largest shareholder. The entire family enterprise now rested in my hands. When news of this reached the Vance family, they went insane. Mr. Vance struck Julian across the face. "I told you to marry Clara Carter. Now she's married someone else, and we've lost our best chance." As he was yelling, a pregnant woman appeared at their doorstep. It was Maria, the village girl, announcing she was carrying Julian's child. Mr. and Mrs. Vance both fainted. Without me, Julian could never become wealthy. His family was on the verge of bankruptcy. It was only because I had begged my grandfather for his savings that I had saved their business last time. Julian remembered all of this. He came crawling back to me just before my wedding. "Clara," he pleaded, "don't go through with it. File for divorce. I'll still marry you." I looked at him like he was garbage. "Julian, do you really think I'll take my grandfather's savings like last time just to save your failing company and raise your endless parade of illegitimate children? You've lived 2 lives and you're still this delusional." He slumped to the ground. You're reborn too," he murmured. "That explains it. That explains why Alex Ivanov isn't paralyzed." He left, defeated. But I didn't expect what he would do next. Julian went mad. He hired someone pretending to be a driver to kidnap me. I woke up tied to a chair in an abandoned warehouse. He approached me with crazed eyes. "You never let me touch you in our last life. I kept going through woman after woman, but you never once looked at me. Now, in this life, you treat me like trash again. I'll make sure you submit to me." I was bound so tightly I couldn't move. The only thing I could do was spit in his face. He licked the spit off his cheek, laughing manically. "If you dare touch me, you won't live to regret it," I warned. He grabbed my jaw, about to kiss me when a gunshot rang out. The bullet hit his leg and he collapsed. Alex had arrived. What Julian did was more than just assault. In this era, it was hooliganism, a serious offense, especially when the victim was the wife of a high-ranking military officer. It was enough to get him executed. "Clara, I'm so sorry I was late," Alex said, rushing to untie me. He picked me up in his arms. I clung to him, burying my face in his chest. I hadn't been as calm as I pretended. Deep down, I had been terrified that my life would be ruined by scum like him. "I'll protect you from now on," Alex whispered. I reached down and gently touched my stomach. "And our baby," I added softly. His eyes lit up. "You're pregnant." I nodded, most likely since the night we registered our marriage. He couldn't stop smiling the entire way home. Though the wedding had a rough interruption, it went smoothly in the end. After my grandfather officially named me his successor, my parents scrambled to cozy up to me. They didn't dare cause trouble and even followed Grandpa's orders to prepare a respectable dowry. After taking over the company, I immediately allocated funds toward pharmaceutical research. In my past life, I had failed to develop a drug that could extend Grandpa's life. This time, I wouldn't.